Well, good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Friday, April 28th, 2023. And our top story today, nearly half the planet plays video games. And joining me now to discuss this and a lot more, David Cole is the owner of DFC Intelligence. David, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Well, thank you for having me, Jeff.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And we're talking about a new report that you and the team just issued, and I was mesmerized by this. Nearly half the planet plays video games. Give us a little bit of the snippet, give us a little bit of the background here. That's amazing to me.
Yeah, well, I'd like to say, that's an amazing, it's clearly a great sign of how the game industry's grown, but I compare it to watching TV. If you told people that half the planet watches TV, I don't think people would be that surprised. We hear them know that half the planet plays video games. It gets a lot. I think it's made about, video games are kind of a really new phenomenon, and that's only been around 50 years or so. And it's one of those things that you didn't grow up playing video games, probably didn't get started playing video games, but so have to consider with the growth of mobile devices around the world, people are playing smartphones. You can look at the penetration of smartphones, and then products like Wordle, which is the New York Times word game, stuff like that. I mean, it's pervasive in terms of video games are everywhere nowadays.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, I mean, how do you define a video game? Because you just brought up Wordle. A lot of people play crossword puzzles. I mean, there's a different game. We grew up with board games. I'm sure I'm a little bit older than you are, but I grew up with Monopoly, Clue. How do you define a video game in today's world?
And it's interesting because when you bring up board games are new business. That's a whole separate trend that's kind of overlapping with video games too, because board games that have digital versions, people are playing board games online. So there's a lot of confusion about what can constitute a video. Basically, we define it as anything that's interactive, that's digital, that's interactive, will have to go on, and they're doing some type of interface. It's not like a show or a movie, which is pure storytelling. There's user input back and forth, and so there's a lot of diverse content that can fall under the video. It's not just, I think when people think of video games, they think about, Space Invaders or, people Call of Duty, but really it's incredible. There's video games basically for everybody. I mean, you got your traditional board video game versions. You have the games like Candy Crush Saga, really casual puzzle games. I mean, you have brain training games, with logic problems and solving puzzles. And so it's just a very diverse area where any interest, there's probably a board game on it, whether it's gardening, farming simulators have been huge. It's just amazing. If you want to learn how to play, you're going to play a video game to learn how to do that before you ever get into an actual real plane. So, I think.
And you bring up the flight simulators is a perfect example, right? Now they train pilots on flight simulators. So thinking back to my Microsoft and my old Apple II days, we used to play that game. David, when you look geographically, and I would think, obviously North America, Europe, Australia, are there any places, how about Africa? How about, what we would consider maybe emerging markets or developing markets? Are they playing video games as well?
Well, yeah, Africa has the fewest per capita of any place in the world, but I think the emergence of smartphones and mobile devices has really, expanded it all around the world. That's the biggest growth area is, a smartphone has become more and more of a necessity, no matter where you live in the world, and it basically automatically comes with games, and it gets people hooked. And then, hopefully people step up the ladder to become gamers on more advanced platforms, whether it's a PC or a console system. But you look at, the video game console systems, the big systems from Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo, those are limited more to the established markets, North America, Western Europe, Japan, Australia. But you are starting to see some increase in penetration of those in places like Latin America, Eastern Europe, the Middle East, parts of Asia. And, the PC, also has penetration that's a lot more global. But, once again, you have the high-end PC market, which gets pretty expensive, and, more of the low-end PC market, which is much more of a casual game market. But really, on a global basis, it's been the smartphone that's driven much of the growth in terms of overall users. And the hope is that they'll grow and build up the pyramid there.
Yeah, and last question before we go to a commercial break, David, and that is, what about age range? And I know, obviously kids, maybe my generation, our generation, Gen X, I'm a Gen Xer, so we grew up with video games. But what about older generations? My parents who are boomers. What about even older? Are they playing video games?
A little bit, but I think what you find is that it's really increased in terms of the age range of go back to the 1970s was really when the first video game platforms were introduced. So someone who was born in, the 60s, when they were 10, they might have started playing, video games in the Atari era. And then some of them continued, but you're finding more of the generation that was born in the 70s and grew up playing Nintendo and other platforms. They're the ones who continued to play it into adulthood. And they're the ones who become serious gamers. And what we found is that audience, even as they get in their 30s, their 40s, now their 50s, continue to play video games. Whereas you take someone who, is 25 years old, never played video games, it's hard to get them started playing video games. But now, everybody who's 25 started playing video games from the time they were born. So you're seeing that whole generational thing making a big difference. So, a lot of 40 and 50-year-olds today play video games, whereas even 10 and definitely 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. So,
it's just so, I don't know, pervasive is the right word. It's so penetrating in ours and other society. Dave, I need to take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more about the growth of video gaming. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Tax audits, tax liens, Wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
Dave, thanks so much for staying with us this morning. Really appreciate you hanging around for segment number 2.
Yeah, well, great to be back here, Jeff.
Yeah, and I actually got a little bit of video gaming in between the commercial break. Dave, let's talk about. Just kidding. We don't have that much time between segments. But Dave, let's talk about the crossover. And Super Mario Brothers just came out this past weekend, and that is one of the most popular movies. And there have been more crossovers, Resident Evil, and others that have crossed over from video game into the mainstream movies. I mean, that just shows you the power of video game genres.
Yeah, well, definitely. I think, you see Sony with the PlayStation platform. They've had quite a bit of success because they own the Sony Pictures too. And so, they had this very popular HBO show, The Last of Us, which won all kinds of rewards, but the story was based right off the video games. So, that was fairly unique in that they took the full video game story and made it into a TV show. It wasn't just a spin-off series. And so you're seeing these video games that, the narrative of the video game is almost a story into itself. So it's not just a licensing the characters type of thing, but it's taking the whole video game narrative and making it into a show that's winning awards and really attracting a sophisticated audience. And so I think it's a clear sign that, not just is there that cross licensing opportunity that's, really, significant among, a younger generation, where you see Sega had with the Sonic the Hedgehog, they had nice movies. Last week, they bought the makers of Angry Birds, who had several successful movies off of their franchise. But then you're seeing these products that could take an actual video game story that's enough of a narrative to be a high-end HBO show. So
it's absolutely amazing, the phenomena. Dave, what about nostalgia? I grew up with an 8-bit. We were talking before the show. I grew up with the Apple II, with the TI 99.4A. Other people grew up with the Commodore. There's a big nostalgia market out there for some of these old 8-bit games, and NES was another one that was 8-bit. How big is that, and how big of a part? Obviously you got the shoot 'em ups and the other types of high-end games, but those games still bring a lot of people a lot of joy, and that nostalgia for many of us and as Gen Xers is pretty powerful.
Yeah, well, it's huge. I think, Nintendo offers all the 8-bit and 16-bits as part of their monthly subscription service. But then, one of the interesting things I see is a licensing deal with Lego, which these Lego sets are really targeted for adults. So they have, I think, a Lego NES set, which I think it runs for $200-some. It's really designed for adults. The nostalgia factor. I think they have a similar one for the Atari, the old Atari from the 70s. So, that's appealing to that nostalgia factor where, you're buying a $200 Lego set that reminds you of, what you did in your childhood. And I think it's one of those huge factors. And you can obviously even go buy some of the old cartridges for some crazy prices if you can find them out there, even though, they don't necessarily play that well. They're just something, because you get those games for free, but it's just something you collect as a collectible. That's a classic from childhood, so that nostalgia factor is huge.
Yeah, that Atari VCS, that Atari was not the best graphics, but boy, did I have fun as a kid playing Space Invaders. Dave, last question, and I know there's been a lot of talk about the metaverse. There's been a lot of talk about AR, augmented reality. What's the future? I mean, these games, even for simple devices like a phone, they are so powerful and they're so they bring you into the experience. Where do we go from here? I mean, I got confused when they added more than 2 buttons. So, I mean, how pervasive is it going to be in the future, and what's the future going to look like for this marketplace?
Well, yeah, I think the future is just going to continue to get more diverse. I think, games are going to continue to penetrate life in all realms and age ranges. I think, people in Gen X, as you said, the first generation, as they become senior citizens, they're going to be playing games into their old age. I think, like you said, there's a big trend towards and Sony released a whole adaptive control system for people who can't necessarily push 50 buttons at once. And I think there will be, one thing in the future, focus back on the simplicity of where you can hold a drink in one hand and play a game in the other. And that's kind of, I think, more and more people are going to realize that, hey, you got these very complicated games. There's a certain audience for that, but then you got this whole audience that, they might have liked those complicated games back in the day, but as they age, they go back to the simpler taste. And so I think, you'll just see the game industry adapt it to all these different experiences targeted to all different levels and styles of gameplay. So it's basically, something for everyone. And I think, the game industry is, it's going to be as pervasive as television, TV shows, movies, music. It's just something that everybody has. And there's different styles, all types of different content for everybody. And that's just something that's going to continue to grow, no matter whether it's the metaverse or AR, VR. Those are just, part of the equation that a future where there's something for everybody is what we're really looking at.
Yeah, it is a competition for your eyeballs, whether it's movies, whether it's games. I'm hoping they bring back the pinball machine, by the way, Dave. I really like the pinball machine and all the noises it makes. Dave, we're going to have to leave it there. Great to talk to you. Great report. Thanks so much for joining us. We look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Okay, thank you very much.
That wraps up this episode of BRNAM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the latest curated news in lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more, all in one place, curated by a human being. That's right, a human being. Check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Want to search our archives, check out our latest content? We'll visit our website and, of course, all of our streaming partners. We're back again tomorrow for another edition of BRN Weekly. We'll be taking a look back at some of our best segments for the week. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving. Don't forget, roll with the changes. Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the first lifestyle and wellness network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.